Welcome to our First Friday learning activity. This video was created for parents and childcare providers. Our learning activity videos are designed to show you how you can lead your children in a fun activity after watching the First Friday read-along. We encourage you to expand or adapt this learning activity as needed to fit what you may have available at home or in the classroom. Please enjoy this video, and if you have any questions, reach out to us at tgardner@crystalstairs.org.
Hello and welcome to the Crystal Stairs Resource Library Learning Activity. My name is Tandra, and today we read a story about Ramon and El Cucuy. In the story, Ramon and El Cucuy form an unexpected friendship and end up working together to ease their fears. So in that book, there are several conversations that you may want to reiterate with the children. One, they worked together to identify what they were worried about. Two, they talked about what they could do if those things actually happened. And three, they reminded one another of times from the past when they were brave. It is very important to always give children a space and time and opportunity to share their concerns, their worries, their fears. And so one of my favorite ways to do that is through conversations, either sitting together with children at the art table or having a snack and a meal together and having a conversation, or even around your sensory or your water table. So today I wanted to share an activity. I'm calling it, let's melt away our worries. This is called a kitchen science activity because these are items you probably already have in your kitchen and you can use them to start the conversation. So before we begin, I just want to remind you to provide adequate supervision when you are offering activities like this. Also, make sure that it's developmentally appropriate for your group. This activity can be used mostly for older preschoolers 4 and up. School-age children can really benefit from these types of activities and will be more involved with the process, but I would say some children as young as 4 can benefit from the learning that will occur here. Okay, so there are several things that you will need. You're going to need ice, you're going to need salt, and you're going to need some way to set up the activity, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So I want to share this activity with you and show you how to make a big block of ice. So all I did was put some water in one of my larger Tupperware dishes and I froze it overnight. And usually if I was working with a group of children, I would put it in a sensory table or a sensory bin or something like this because it's going to melt and I'm going to add color. I want to contain the mess. But for the sake of the video today, I wanted you to be able to see the process. So I'm just going to put it in this glass container. So once you have your block of ice, I'm going to drop it in. And we're really just going to use this as an opportunity to talk about what happens when we have a worry. And we're going to watch the ice melt. And as the ice melts, we can reiterate that our worries also can melt. So I just want to take a moment before I show you how to do the activity to remind you that when you're having these conversations with children, you want it to flow, you want it to emerge naturally. But you also want to be prepared to offer them some prompts or some things to think about if the conversation gets stuck. So one of the things that I find helpful is to have some pre-identified open-ended questions that I can ask if there's like a lull in the conversation. So for instance, what is a worry? And let the children discuss that. Who has worries? And how do worries go away, or what can you do to help a worry? All right, so that conversation is going to look differently with the group of children, and just let it naturally emerge. Okay, so now back to the activity. We have a large block of ice, and we're going to set out some materials and see what happens. This is our kitchen science part. So I've separated some salt. I have some watercolor here. I just put red and blue. You can choose whatever colors you have. And I'm going to start by just pouring some of the salt on here. Okay, so depending on how big your block of ice is and how much salt you use, it's going to determine how quickly this melts. So I'm just going to show you by pouring, I'm going to start by pouring some salt on our block. And can you hear that? I don't know if you're close enough to hear it. But if there were children here, they would definitely say it's making a noise. So let's see what happens when we add some of our water. And this is the part that children can do. Let's try a little blue. So I'm using watercolor, I have salt, and I have little droppers. There are so many different ways you can do this. I always encourage you to use what you have. If you have these little squeegee bottle kind of things, you can put your watercolor in here. I know some folks who actually put the salt dissolved in the water so that all the children have to do is squirt it. And so these are just opportunities to explore what happens when you mix salt and ice. Okay, so if you're wondering what is the purpose of the water, the purpose of the coloring, the water helps activate the salt to melt the ice faster. And the coloring is optional, but I find that when working with children, it helps provide a visual because you can actually see the cracks in the ice. And then at that point, it becomes science and art. Before we go, I wanted to share a variation on the ice. So if you're doing this as a large group activity and you're just gonna have one block of ice, that's good. But you may also want to provide each child with their own individual ice to do the experiment. And in that case, I find that these little molds come in handy. This is just a little mold that you can find. I've seen them at Ross. I've seen them at some of the child development stores as well. With these individual molds, you just fill them up and freeze them. And then it comes out larger than a traditional piece of ice, which is why I like them. And they're just little circle cubes of ice. Really cool. And so then you can provide a smaller little bowl or cup, and each child can have their own, which melts and dissolves at their own pace depending on how much salt or water they add. So they have more control over the activity. So I want to thank you for joining us today. I want to encourage you to continue on this journey with the learning with your children, and I hope to see you again on the next First Friday. Bye-bye.